and welcome to episode 1 of Food for Freedom podcast. Can you believe it? I have been so excited to start this because I just feel like this is so me. I have such an important message to share about food freedom and finding food freedom that me just yapping away to the camera just feels right, you know? I struggle to get it all into one video, so for that I am so excited. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Neve. If you do know me, you might know me from Instagram, TikTok. I'm called Fuel for Freedom over there, and I'm constantly talking about food freedom, rewiring your brain for food freedom. In the past, I have suffered with eating disorders and I have healed myself from them, from rewiring my brain, and I like to share it all with you. So I thought, what better way than to just sit and talk away and tell you absolutely everything that I can possibly share with you. So that's exactly what I'm doing. I thought with this episode it's going to be very much me telling you what this podcast is going to be, what to expect, a little bit about my story, how I went about things, and overall just to help you feel less alone. So from this podcast you can very much expect me yapping away at you about all things perspective, all things mindset, all things brain rewiring in real life, things that you can use, things that you can talk to yourself, just whole new different perspectives that we don't get taught anywhere else in the world to help heal your relationship with food. You know, everyone thinks, oh, you know, I'm stuck like this. Everyone thinks therapy will work. Everyone thinks this and that. And yes, I had all of those things. I thought all of those things. I went through with all of those things. And recovery is very different for everyone. Healing your relationship with food looks different for everyone. And for me, the real healing and the real freedom around food and really letting go of fear around food came from rewiring my brain every single day, constantly talking to myself in a new way, constantly changing my thoughts around food. And don't get me wrong, it didn't happen overnight. It was very uncomfortable. But I mean, does anything good come from your comfort zone? I don't think so. And I know it's not our fault. I know we weren't given problems with food and struggles with food deliberately. I know no one ever starts a diet with the intention of destroying their relationship with food, but you are in control of your life. I was in control of my life, and that's not to say it's your fault, but it's to say you get to decide what you can do with yourself if you want change. If you want to experience freedom around food, it's up to you to see what next steps you can take and how you can speak to yourself kindly and how you can change the way you think around food. That is going to be the real thing that drives you to food freedom. You're not going to have to figure it out yourself. I'm going to be right here next to you. Whenever you want, you can come and listen. That is the beauty of me just yapping away about it all. So don't you worry. I'm going to help you and we're going to get there. So before we go into it all, the reason that I've started this podcast is because the biggest thing that I used when I was struggling with food was a podcast. I used to look forward to that time alone where I could just go outside and go for a walk and just listen to someone telling me that I am not the only one going through it. I would listen to people's stories, I'd relate to them, I'd try and hear how they managed to heal their relationship with food. I would listen to them just talk about it, and immediately I would just feel like this sense of relief, like, oh, I'm not the only one going through this. Oh, this makes me feel so much better that there are other people experiencing this, because it makes you feel so extremely lonely when you struggle with food. You've got all of these noises in your head, all of these voices, and you just nothing makes sense. Everything is a task. Everything is an argument in your head. You can't enjoy things. Everything has to be compromised. The list goes on. So by listening to other people, it would just be time for me to think and be able to relate to people, because of no one in my family had experienced it firsthand. None of my friends knew really about it. It was very much all in my head. So that one-on-one time, just listening to someone talk about it, really made me feel less alone. Following from that I have also started this is I never see people talk about the stuff that I'm going to be talking about. You know, I wish I had this when I was struggling, and I'm not saying that in a biased way. I'm saying that in a way that I have so much value to give that baby me, let's call me baby me because I have matured so much since then, would have killed to hear in the moment. Sometimes you're not ready for it, that's okay, but the fact that this will just be here waiting for you when you are ready to hear the information, that's a win in my eyes. So that is why I am doing this podcast, because I want to share the whole perspective that I have on healing your relationship with food. And that is all in the mind, in the most powerful tool that you have, that you can unlock any single day that you want. You can use it. And that is the way I'm going to show you from my experience. I just really want anything I can do to push you in that direction of finding food freedom, because I lost myself when I struggled with food, and I knew who I was, and it wasn't someone who struggled with food. So I would have done anything with anyone to try and find myself back when I was struggling. So that's why I'm here for you. I'm just holding out my hand now so that you can hold it if you want. So I'm going to take it all the way back to when I first started struggling with food. And for me, it was this thing where I had no idea what was going on. Like, I knew I was becoming obsessive. I knew things weren't right, but I had never, one, thought I had an eating disorder or would ever get one or would ever have such an issue. But two, I didn't see myself as struggling enough. I don't know how to explain that, and a lot of people might relate to that, but my struggle wasn't valid because there were other people that were worse than me. So I never really thought there was a problem with me because I wasn't as bad as I perceived I could get, really. So now that I've shared about why I'm doing my podcast, I wanted to share a little bit about my story. I've never really fully told the full story on my Instagram, TikTok, mainly because, it's hard to get it all into one video. It's such a big, huge journey that included so many different things in it that it's not really something I feel like someone would watch when they're just scrolling on Instagram and TikTok. But now it's time for me to share some of it with you now. So I'm going to do just that. So we're going to jump all the way back to lockdown. This is where it first started, and I'm going to give you a little bit of background. Growing up as a child, I have, for as long as I can remember, struggled with my body image, around food, around things that were deemed as bad foods. I was too young to even really know about this stuff, but I remember being in primary school, I was always so self-conscious of my body. I was always thinking about, oh, I'm eating too many bad foods, etc. So that has always been stemmed in me as a young girl, which is really sad, but kind of makes sense as to everything I've gone through now. With lockdown, I at the time was a hairdresser. I was working in the hairdressers, and obviously that got locked down and I was stuck at home a lot. And I thought to myself, do you know what? I've got all this time in the world. I'm going to get in shape. I, like I said, have always had issues with my body image, and I would never typically say there was anything actually wrong with me, but in my head there was very much things wrong with me. And when you are constantly telling yourself that there's things wrong with you, that's what you're going to see. Your brain filters exactly what it wants to see. So if I see that I am a horrible monster, I'm going to see that I'm a horrible monster, and I'm going to then make the changes that comes with me thinking I'm a horrible monster. And for me, unfortunately, at the time, it was to try and lose weight. It was to try and cut back my food, get in shape, lose weight, I had not the slightest clue on how to do this healthily or in a way that is actually going to benefit me. So, me being a young girl, I just looked it up. I looked up how to. I didn't know anything about my height, my weight, anything like that, all the important things that people should take into consideration that's not spoke about enough. And I just started cutting back my food, and I started doing lots and lots of exercise. At the time, it was Chloe Ting workouts, 10-minute abs or whatever, but constantly, to the point it was excessive amounts of exercise. It turned into a routine. Every single day I was doing it. I was feeling good. It was a little bit rigid, and I did think, oh, like, if only I could take part in this and take part in that. But I didn't think anything of it because I thought, it's only a short amount of time. Once I lose X amount, I can then do this. Once I lose X amount, I can just do that. No, I did not know what that was going to turn into. Little did I know that was going to turn into the start of something that nearly ruined my life, nearly took my life away from me. And if I could have stopped it in the moment, of course I would have. But unfortunately, I, within me, had created the environment for an eating disorder to thrive in. And obviously didn't do this on purpose, but very quickly I found that I was being complimented about the shape I was in. I was being complimented for looking great. People had noticed that I'd lost weight, and it felt so nice, everyone complimenting me. Like I said, I've always struggled growing up, to then be actually noticed, to actually be complimented, like, felt amazing. So I thought, oh, like, wow, maybe I'll keep this up then. And I thought, I'm still not where I want to be, so I'm going to push it further. The next lockdown happened. I pushed it further. I thought, I'm going to get more locked in than ever. And the steps, the exercise, the food, it all became more and more strict. The food was being cut even more, bearing in mind I wasn't even choosing the right food options. I was excessively exercising. Any time of the day that I wasn't doing anything else, I would be exercising. And then during the exercise, I was thinking about my meals. I was thinking about the next thing I was going to eat. And anyway, it very, very, very quickly took a turn, and every day was stricter. Every day was rules, restrictions, exercise, rules, restrictions, exercise, rules, restrictions, exercise. But the reason that got bad is I stopped seeing what it was doing to me. Every time I would look in the mirror, I would see not me. I would see someone that was getting bigger with their body, and even though all her rules were getting stricter, how could I be getting bigger? How could I be getting bigger? My eyes. My eyes were playing tricks on me, and that led me to push it even further. Push, 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 until I had so many rules and restrictions that I crumbled. And this was going on for a long time. And one day I knew something wasn't right. Every day I was miserable. Every day I was locking myself in my room doing weird behaviours. Every day something new was happening that I thought, this is out of control. I was going into my room and I was watching mukbangs, salivating over them. I was going into my room, scrolling menus of Uber Eats and things I wasn't allowed to eat. I was online shopping for food that I don't even online shop for. I was just looking at all the things I couldn't have. I was constantly looking for recipes under X amount of calories. There were so many rules and things I was applying to myself and looking for, and so many habits and isolating things that I was doing that I knew something wasn't right. I was thinking about food all the time. I was obsessed with food all the time. I wasn't allowed over a certain amount of food, and if I did, things would just crumble. Anyway, I knew there was a problem, and the day that I found out the problem was very scary. I had just finished some sort of exercise, and I was thinking, oh my God, like, I've still got 4 hours till dinner. I'm so hungry. And I remember just bursting into tears, and I went into my mum and I said, Mum, there's something not right here. Like, I think there's something wrong with me. And I'd done a bit of research. I was Googling, why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? Why am I doing this? Every single thing was eating disorder, eating disorder, eating disorder. And I was like, I think I have a problem. And I was crying, crying, crying. And the thing is, she was actually coming to speak to me as well. She had noticed. And the thing is, I never created a space to talk to me because I was so angry. I'd lock myself all away all the time and never let anyone speak to me. And I would just shut down the idea if anyone told me that there was a problem. But for me, I had to go and open up. I had to admit there was a problem. So then I went for some help, and we called up, and, there was a huge wait line because of the fact it was lockdown. And it was almost this thing of, you had to prove your pain, you had to prove how bad you were, how much you were struggling, in order to feel like you were going to get some help. And that's exactly what I had to do. And with that, after constant pushing, trying to get help, and note they were saying there was a wait list, and I think it was a very long wait list, but I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm stuck like this. I need help. And I also felt, but there is also so many other people that are struggling, so it's really hard. Like, I'm no better than anyone else, and I want other people to have help. So it was a very, very hard situation. Anyway, as I was waiting and been put on the wait list, things got even worse. I pushed things further. The illness made me push things further. And it got to one day where I was sat in front of food and I was crying, couldn't eat it. And I had to sit with Mum, and I said to her, I need help now. I can't go on like this. I'm terrified. I'm terrified of what I'm going to do. I'm terrified of where this is going to take me. I'm begging for some help because it felt so, so terrifying. I knew I was losing my life. I knew I didn't want to be here anymore. I knew the illness had taken its full control on me and I didn't know what to do anymore. But for me, that was such an emotional memory. But for me, it's such a memory that I hold so close to my heart because if I had never spoke up about my struggle, who knows where the illness takes you? Who knows what else could have happened? And for me, I feel so grateful that I found the courage to speak about it, and I will always encourage other people to speak about it because it's so important that you get help from your family, from your friends, from anyone that you can, or just make anyone aware of it because it's such an isolating illness. It wants you on your own. So that's very much what I was experiencing. Anyway, got the help. So after months of some help and sort of CBT therapy, things had gotten better. I had done probably a year of help and I was at a stage where I could start to look after myself now, start to, eat different things, start to feel a bit more comfortable around food. But unfortunately, there was still something missing. I was eating more and I was allowing myself to eat more, but my mind would never switch off. And this is the very isolating thing. Calories, I was still counting calories. I could never forget calories of anything. Calories dictated my entire life. They chose every decision around food. They controlled me. I still felt so guilty around food. The guilt never left. I'd still go to bed thinking about what I was eating all day, thinking about what I was eating the next day. It was still very disordered, but it was like a normalized disordered from how bad I was. So I thought I was getting better because I was better than how bad I was, but I wasn't better. My mind was still very disordered around food. During this time, I was experiencing extreme hunger as well, which was like eating huge amounts of food, which was really hard to process because it was like I'm eating so much food, but I'm so hungry and I can't stop and I know my body needs it. But then it felt so backwards from everything I was telling myself before with restriction. That was a very uncomfortable time and it was very hard to navigate because I was eating so much more food than I was used to. It was so hard to know what to do because I felt out of control in the moments that I was just listening to the extreme hunger. But then I found that my body did start to trust me after a while of pushing through the extreme hunger because it was clear what was happening. I'd been restricting for ages, I'd been malnourished, and then when I'm finally starting to eat food, it wanted food. It wanted the constant food from me and I had to keep giving it to it. But when the extreme hunger fizzled and sort of balanced out and my body started to trust me a little bit again, I then developed binge eating, which was extremely hard. Extremely hard because it felt like I was on this hamster wheel of just being controlled by food. There was one end of the spectrum that I was dealing with anorexia and then I come through and then I end up with binge eating. Like, this is relentless, I thought to myself. Like, when am I ever going to get a break? This is just, I feel so trapped. And I was binging every single night. Like, I'm talking thousands and thousands and thousands of calories. And I knew the difference between extreme hunger and binging because I had experienced it. A binge, when I would binge around food, turned blackout. Like, there was me eating a bit of food and it would turn into a literal blackout. I'd forget where I was, I'd forget who I was. All I cared about is shoving my face with food and not being able to stop until there was physically no more food around me. And I felt so confused because I was like, for so long I haven't been allowed food. For so long it's been the opposite. I've been congratulating myself over not eating, and now I'm shoveling food down my throat like it's going tomorrow, like none of us have it tomorrow or something. And it was such a scary experience because I couldn't physically believe the amount of food I could fit in my mouth, and I couldn't physically believe the amount I could eat in one sitting, and it completely threw me off because I just didn't know, again, what was happening to me. I didn't know if this was part of it. I didn't have anyone to tell me this was coming. This doesn't come for everyone. This is just what happened to me, and I also found that so hard to navigate. But with the binge eating, I found out, and a huge part of my journey was this was huge in the brain. And that is why I like to speak about the brain so much, because the brain and understanding the brain actually healed me from my binge eating. Something that I thought was down to willpower, something that I thought I needed to have more control over, something I thought about me not being in control was causing the binge eating. It was none of that for me. It was understanding why it was happening, why my mind was doing it. And it was because I was still following rules and restrictions, regardless of going back to a normal weight. I was still trying to control everything and control my food, trying to control my weight with rules and restrictions, and that was creating extreme binge eating for me because my body didn't like the rules and restrictions. I think I want to talk about the fact that, I've spoke about how it's nice to have someone there when you're going through recovery or healing your relationship with food to make you feel less alone. But I also think it's really important to hear the things to expect in recovery. Like I said, there isn't things to sometimes relate to. Everyone shows you the victories of healing a relationship with food, which is of course amazing. Like, we need that motivation, we need that fuel to want to recover. We want to see what we're missing in life, what we're doing to ourselves. And it is important, though, to know that when you are healing your relationship with food, you do not feel as though you are healing your relationship with food. You've been in a brain that has learned to fear food. Whether you've had anorexia, whether you just struggle with food, whether you are struggling with restriction, whether you feel like you're constant yo-yo dieting, whatever your food struggle is valid, okay? But when you decide to come away from any sort of control that lands in those pockets, it's going to be hard because your brain has learned control equals safety with those habits. Control equals leading to the benefits of all of those habits. And I say benefits, I don't mean benefits as in there is benefits to those things, because they're not. Your brain just perceives them as benefits because of what we believe and our thoughts are around food. So of course, unlearning the beliefs around food and control and everything that your brain has learned in these struggles with food is going to be hard. It's not going to happen overnight. It didn't happen overnight for me. So when I was actually doing well at recovering and healing my brain and pushing past the fear and still getting anxiety and still getting fear thoughts and still getting intrusive thoughts about calories, that was all part of it. It was all part of it, and it's all a way to keep your control brain alive. It's all ways to try and keep you safe. Your brain's trying to protect you, but it doesn't mean your healing is wrong. This can sometimes look like still caring about what you're eating some days, and then some days you don't care. It can still be having urges when you've been doing well for so long. It can be falling into places of restriction for certain periods of time, even doing well for so long. There's so many different aspects to healing your relationship with food that are all part of the journey, but you need to know that your journey is your own. It doesn't mean you're failing if your journey doesn't look the same as someone else's. It doesn't mean if you can't relate to any of my stuff, it doesn't mean your struggle is any less valid. All food struggle is valid, and all struggle during healing is valid, and you need to know that during healing and healing your relationship with food, you will experience some things that feel weird, feel uncomfortable, feel like they shouldn't be happening. If you were doing healing right, these wouldn't be happening. That is not the case. In recovery, you are going to expect messy moments. You really, really are. You're going to have tears, you're going to have tantrums, you're going to have days where it feels like you're back at day one, but it's always, and I will stand until the day that I die, it is always the thing that you do after these episodes, periods of struggle, which is going to take you to food freedom. But it's not to worry, none of this is going to make sense to you right now. I've just introduced myself. You've also only been seeing me for a minute or two on TikTok or Instagram. So this is where we're going to really, really dig deep. We're going to talk about different things every week. We're going to dive deep into different things every week. I'm going to ask you guys what you want to see, what you want to be answered. I'm going to help bring clarity and help you show how to rewire your brain around food and the ways that I implemented and the things I told myself and the things that I done in order to get me to food freedom now. So when I really got into rewiring my brain was when I had this weird experience one day where obviously I'd been through all of that, and every day was just so tiring. Every day was exhausting living in my mind. No one understood it, but every day I just normalized it in my mind. I'd crack on, I'd get on with my day, but it was exhausting. Like, I didn't want to be around food any day because it was just so mentally draining. And one day I thought to myself, I am just sick of this. Like, I am so sick of this. And I thought, I've tried this, I've tried that. Nothing is changing. Like, I need to do something that tells my brain, no, I'm not doing this anymore. And that's when I had this weird thing where I've told a few people about this who have DM'd me, actually. I voice noted them this, and it makes me sound crazy, but I got into like identity shifting, like manifestations. I'm very spiritual. I very much believe in the universe. I really got into identity shifting, and I thought that was really interesting because I thought, hang on a sec, if I can actually create a practical for me where I physically create this version of me and describe this version of me that's free around food and try and embody that person every day, then what harm could it do? It's free, I can do it, and it might be quite fun. Like, the idea of it made me feel excited, and that was so weird because nothing was making me feel excited at the time. So I created this version of me that was free around food in my head, and every day I would listen to it on repeat. I'd voice note myself reading out this version of me, and I would listen to it on repeat. And I would also had this thing where I thought, do you know what? I'm going to completely dissociate myself with an eating disorder now. I'm not going to label myself with it. I'm not going to tell myself I have it. I'm going to talk back to it. I'm going to swear at it when it tells me I can't eat. And I just had this weird, huge rebellion thing against my eating disorder, which really helped with when I was rewiring my brain. And I basically imagined me having two different personalities within myself. I had me, who is free around food, and I had this, I pictured this monster that was the eating disorder, and I went into myself and I picked this monster out of myself and I dangled it in front of me and I said, hey, this is it now. Like, I'm ready to let you go. And it was actually so emotional. Like, I can feel myself getting a bit emotional right now, but for something that made me feel safe for so long and something I gave my life to, I had to hold it and I had to look at it and say, I'm sorry, like, this is the end now. Like, I'm so done with you controlling my life. I'm so done with you making me miserable. It's time to say goodbye. And I would remember dangling it over a cliff, this monster, and this version of me and this eating disorder, and it was in my hand, and I said, like, my final goodbye, and I dropped it off the cliff, and I watched it for something like out of Lion King, when I can't remember the name of the character. Is it Mufasa? I don't know, I could have that completely wrong, but it was just dangling, hanging on the cliff, going, please save me, I'll look after you, I'll do this, I'll do that. And I was just looking down at it while it was dangling, saying bye, kicked it off the edge. Now, this is a great way to visualize it. It's very empowering. It's very, it's very emotional. And it isn't as easy as that. It doesn't just drop off this cliff and then you forget about it. No. But constantly reminding yourself every day that you do not associate with it anymore. You do not let it ruin your life. You have now taken the power over everything that had power over you and dangled it off a cliff and have said bye-bye. So every day I was embodying that. Every day I was remembering that when the food noise wanted to come in and tell me, you can't eat that, you can't have this, you shouldn't have that. I'd imagine this situation of me going, no, I've dropped it off a cliff. I don't associate with myself with it anymore. And then I would carry on with the rewiring as well. And that was a massive shift for me because that was like the start of getting the clocks working around changing my brain around food. And, I've changed my identity around food as well. That was really huge. And it all ties in with the rewiring because I was giving myself a brain and space to think about what life could be without this voice. And then I started finding out about the principles of the universe, the principles of life, how your brain works, and I just got really obsessed, and I realised how much the brain has to do with your thoughts every day. How much where your energy goes, your energy flows, and it was like my energy was very much going into, I'm so terrified of food and I'm so fat and I'm so horrible. So every day I was living my life as that person. I was scared of food. I was seeing myself as horrible and fat, and I was just, everything I was doing was trying to protect me from those things. And I know an eating disorder isn't as easy as just seeing it like that. I know, I've been through it. I didn't see it. There was no possible way of helping me when I was going through it because I had no one to talk to. No one could tell me this. No one knew how to deal with me. And I understand that, of course. But this is just something to even get the clocks ticking in your brain, even just start getting it working, thinking that is actually such a good way to look at it, because it's just like, I did have a fuck you moment and I thought, I'm so sick of this. I'm so sick of this ruining my whole entire life. I need to start implementing things that are going to change the way I think about food. And you know what? Thank God I did, because it kick-started this whole thing, and this is exactly why I'm here to help you do the same. But if there's anything that I can say to you just coming up to a close about this, and really just giving you hope, is that I never thought I would be sat in my car right now filming the first episode of food freedom and how to rewire your brain around food to experience food freedom, as someone who once never, ever, and I'm talking ever, saw a way out of it. I had given my life to food control. I'd given my life to anorexia. I'd given my life to binge eating. I'd given my life to food and food disorders. And it was something that felt so impossible at the time to get past, and so impossible to ever be free from, because it was all I knew. It was all I'd wired my brain to know. It was all I'd wired my brain to react to. But I am sat here, let me just repeat it, sorry. I am sat here filming the first episode of my podcast on everything food freedom and how to get there to help you. Like, that is mind blowing. Like, so I'm just going to give myself a little tap on the back while we're sat here. And if I had a little glass of something right now, I would give a toast and a cheers to us finding food freedom together. But I do think it's very important that I share a little bit of my story so you know who you're talking to. And if you want to know anything else, I can obviously share it with you, of course. But this space is very much going to be from me to you, sharing everything I've learned in my journey. You know, you have a lovely, beautiful brain, and we're going to use it. And I promise you, going into the next episode, please just tell yourself how amazing you are, how proud of yourself you should even be for listening to this and taking interest in my podcast, because something in there is telling me that you want to find food freedom. And I'm going to say it again and again, and I'm going to die on this mountain. I'm going to help you get there. So if this episode has even made you feel slightly less alone, a bit of relief, a bit of hope, then my job's done. But I promise from this moment onwards, we're going to go deep diving into how we're going to get food freedom. We're going to be covering all topics from the middle ground, from the beginning to the end. Anything that you want to know. Anything that you want to know about rewiring your brain and different situations that you're facing that you are finding hard, I'm here for you. And for now, bye bye. I'm so proud of you, and I'll see you in the next one.